Alright guys, welcome back to photopea. We're going to make a donut today. If you're on the start page, you can click new project again and you can get started this way. Remember to change it over to inches and check your size. Since you're making a donut, you can either make it horizontal or vertical. That's up to you. I'm going to make mine horizontal. Change my width to 7, my height to 5. I'm going to change my background to transparent just like in Photoshop, and then I'm going to hit create. I'm hitting Control 0 to zoom in. Once you have that ready to go, you'll have your background layer. I always suggest making, a background color first. So I'm going to pick my paint bucket tool. I'm going to pick my color over here and pick a color from my background. You can use the palette to change and pick any color you want. I kind of like that purple. We're going to go with that and hit OK. Once you have that and you've hit your paint bucket tool, you can just click on your background and it will change the color. Then you're going to come over to new layer where the little page is and make a next layer. Okay, come over to your shape tool. You're going to come down to the ellipse. I'm holding this down to access this, clicking on the ellipse, and I'm going to change the color of my ellipse. So I click the fill type. I want to make it something like a donut color. So I'm going to look and try to find something that resembles maybe what like a glazed donut would look like. Kind of like a tannish, yellowish color. Maybe with a little bit of hint of brown in there. So scroll around until you get the color you want. All right, that looks good. Hit OK. And then to make your ellipse, you can hold shift and it'll help make it even. I'm holding shift on my keyboard. Once I have that, I can go up to the arrow to move it around. Now you're going to do one thing where you actually take apart the centerpiece of your donut. And that is going to be done with the ellipse select tool by holding that. Okay, but the one thing you have to do before you can do this is basically make the layer editable. So I'm on layer 1. I go to layer. Okay, I'm going to go down to rasterize, click on that, and voila, you have an editable layer now. Same thing as before, I'm going to hold shift to make my circle. Okay, if it's not the way I like it, then I can always hit Control D to get rid of it. Shift to figure out where I want to go in the center. And if I like it, I'm going to hit delete, and it gets rid of that centerpiece for you. Remember, Control D will get rid of the blinky lines. And then I have the shape of my donut to start. Now, the rest of the things that you need to add on there are going to be making it look three-dimensional with the blending tools, as well as going in and adding some sort of like glaze to it or adding like different like jimmies, sprinkles, your call on it. And then also adding the word donut in the background. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to stick on this layer because if you don't do it on the correct layer, it's going to get messed up. So I'm going to come over to the dodge tool. Remember, dodge means to lighten, burn means to make darker. So I'm going to lighten the center of this. And I'm from my last screencast, remember that we changed it to shadows so that it was a little bit easier to work with. Okay. Now you can play around with it. If you don't like it, depending on your color, you could change it to midtones. Okay. Or you can change it to highlights. Remember, it's your call. Highlights is going to be a little more vibrant. So I always like to stay away from that. I'm going to change the exposure down to 20% because I don't want it to be too crazy, but I do want it to be in here a little bit. Okay, so come around with this and make the center of my donut glazed. Okay, another thing you can do to kind of like fix it and make sure that it's, looking the right way, you can come into that smudge tool and you can smudge it so it kind of blends a little bit more evenly. And I'm following my mouse around in a circle form, making sure that I'm blending it nice and evenly. Once you have what you want, you can come back to the burn tool and then do the outside edges. Okay, but just make sure you're checking, each of these things, seeing which one you like the best. Like shadows could be really dark on here. Maybe the highlights are going to be what works for you here. Or maybe coming in and doing the shadows or the midtones, just depending, it's your call. You can change the exposure, like I said, so I'm going to 20%. Again, I think I'm going to do midtones this time because I don't want it to look too overpowering. So coming around, doing the outside edge of my donut. I'm also going to do the inside edge of my donut. And remember, it's only going to affect that layer. It's not going to affect the purple in the background. I can come in with the smudge. Okay, and smudge it around, or you have the other option if you want to use the color replacement. Okay, sometimes it can come in and replace the color and fix things. Other things you can do are blur it. So if you want to blur to get like the lines, make them a little bit more even, you can use that tool. There's so many options for you in this program, thankfully, that you can work to get what you need. Blurring it may help make the little lines that are on the inside that happen with that brush tool, may help make them go away. I know I'll probably use a combination of the smudge and the blur to get this to look even. Okay, so it's just like a work in progress as you're doing it. Once you have that, then you're going to make a new layer, and you're going to use that brush tool, and you can make some jimmies on there, or sprinkles. I know everybody makes fun of me for saying jimmies. Okay, it can be sprinkles too. So I'm going to pick one of these ones. Let's start with this one, and I'm going to change the color of my brush. Okay, so one thing I'm going to do is also make this a little bit smaller. Click on the color, make various colors of my sprinkles. Okay, maybe I'll come in here and change my color again, or maybe even change my brush. Let's see, let's make it like a hot pink or something. Make my brush a little smaller. And these even resemble what the jimmies look like too, because they're that shape. Okay, so once you have a couple things on there, that's one of the requirements for the layer. You can also play around with how it affects it they have the same blending tools that Photoshop does, and it can affect how everything's overlaid. If you want it to be a little less crazy, you can pick on that overlay. You can do hard light depending on how bright you want your colors to be. The last thing you're going to do is you're going to make a text box. So the T over here, okay, is going to represent that. What you can do is click on that and then just drag a box. Really easy. Once you have that, you can start typing the word donut. And as you can see, the font's color is up here and the actual font is up here. I highlight it, I click on my color, hit OK, and then I can change the font. There's, unfortunately, we're not going to have the Photoshop fonts, but at least there's a bunch of different fonts in here that you can use. So maybe I'll try this one. Okay, I can click on that, see what it looks like, and then you can look at the preview and change the size. So like say I want it to be a little bit bigger, I can click on this. I'm going to move my donut and its other layer real quick to the side so my word donut will appear. Okay, and then with donut you can come up to, I have to find the blending and the filters for you. We're going to try and use the blending tools. Okay, on here, let's see if we can access it. It might not be on here yet. With the donut, you're going to want to try and play around with it. You can also hit, oh no, I lost it. Control T if you need to resize. Okay. Playing around with maybe the blending modes here, like color dodge, how is it going to affect it? The soft light, how is it going to affect it? Okay. Okay, so for the word donut, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to layer style, and then the blending options. Usually you can right click, but it wasn't letting me. So you have to come into this to do and get the blending options. You can do things like beveling and embossing. I'm sure some of you played around with this in Photoshop already, so you can see it's very similar. You could do a stroke, which would be like a highlight on the outside. Like, so say if I wanted to put a lighter pink on the outside, I highlight it. I can change the size to 1, so it's not too crazy. I could change the opacity and make it stand out a little bit. You can change, you can add an outer glow. You could do a drop shadow if you want. You can change the opacity of it and the distance that it goes. But I want you to play around with it and give your word something so that it, becomes more prominent. All right. Those are your requirements for your donut. Just make sure you fill this in a little bit more than I did on mine. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.